I think that to early career professionals in infection prevention, I think it's important to acknowledge the reality of the field in which you will be asked to act in a leadership capacity. But it's also important to realize that leadership doesn't have to look one way, and you get to define the leader that you want to be in infection prevention. I think that I found it really valuable to spend time reflecting on what kind of leader I wanted to be, and it really helped make me an effective infection preventionist. And I think that Powerful IP was a really good place to do that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carol W. Kamangu, and I'm the founder and CEO of Dumontel Healthcare Consulting. Today, I'm being joined by Dr. Lorenzo Howard, who is the ambassador for Dumontel Healthcare Consulting, and also Jaclyn Shallat, who is a former participant of the Powerful IP coaching program for new infection preventionists. And we are also celebrating International Infection Prevention Week. So happy International Infection Prevention Week to all of you. As I'm being joined by these two remarkable leaders in infection prevention, I'd like for you to join me on this journey as we're learning about Jaclyn's story in infection prevention, and also as she's transitioning into a new career and what she has learned from infection prevention from the Powerful IP program, and how she is utilizing those new skills to better healthcare systems. So let's dive in and let's enjoy this conversation together.
Hey, Jaclyn, it is such a pleasure to have you here on the show. So, can you introduce yourself and to listeners, and also share what drew you to infection prevention?
For sure. Thank you, Lorenza. It is such a pleasure to be here. My name is Jaclyn Shallat. I'm a current first year medical student and a former infection preventionist. My path to infection prevention is pretty typical for people coming from a public health background. I graduated in 2020 into the COVID-19 pandemic and did COVID-19 pandemic work, and then pursued my master's in public health degree. It was while I was pursuing that degree that I did a project on CAUTI and got interested in infection prevention. And so when I graduated my master's program, I applied to infection prevention positions and was lucky enough to secure a job at my former organization.
That's amazing. So, for you, you were already exposed to the field of infection prevention through your MPH program?
Yes, I had some light experience with infection prevention working at the health department during COVID because we were communicating with a lot of hospital administrators, nursing home administrators about the spread of COVID-19 within their facilities. But it was during my master's program where I was really able to explore the field a little bit more and think critically about prevention type activities in healthcare settings. And so that was my introduction to infection prevention.
That's very impressive, and it's very proud of you just hearing that you were able to take a step. You know what you wanted for your career, and you took the next step where you have even more responsibilities, but with that new mindset of an IP. When you were working as an infection preventionist, what were some of the challenges and fears you experienced as you were starting in the field?
Oh man, so many. I think fears more than challenges, but I really feel as though I was able to meet a lot of people along the way that gave me the confidence to do that job effectively. I would say I'm not the most natural leader. It doesn't come naturally to me personally. And it was really uncomfortable for me to step into a new environment with a new job and have to act in a leadership capacity. And I am someone also who doesn't like being disliked. And as an infection preventionist, it's important to be able to, challenge practices that you see that might not be, the best for patient safety. And I realized that I was struggling with this early on in my infection prevention career and was really eager to seek out opportunities to improve my communication skills so that I'd be effective at my job.
Absolutely. And so I said earlier that it's a pleasure to be here with you, but when you work in the field of infection prevention and you're really immersed in it, it's a large field. However, it becomes very, very small. So, of course, Jaclyn and I have a connection because I actually trained you as your first IP role. So it was such a pleasure interviewing you and subsequently, training you within that first role and seeing your growth. And as you noted, which is so important, that it doesn't matter what your personality is, you can definitely grow within this particular profession. So I know that during the time in which you transition into the field of IP, as you've noted, you have some experience working in the health department during the pandemic times, but throughout the duration of your IP experience, we know that you're now a medical student, but what made you stay within the profession during that time, although you've made this career shift? And even despite some of the challenges that you noted just in your previous statement and any other challenges that you faced.
I think you said it. There are a couple things that I found were really encouraging to me in infection prevention. I think specifically one of those would be that practical impact you can have as an infection preventionist on patient safety. It felt very tangible to me working in that field to know that I was helping make a difference. I think the other thing, Lorenza, you said that the field of infection prevention is really small. And I noticed really quickly just how awesome my teammates were and how invested people were in the field of infection prevention in training up new infection preventionists and making sure that we had the resources we needed to succeed. And so I would say the community was a big appeal to me as well.
Yes, I agree. It's a big world, but a small world as well. When I was working for a specific facility, it felt large, especially being a member of APIC. But by the time I ventured out on my own as a consultant, I realized, oh yeah, it is a very small community, worldwide community at that. So it's a very it's very true. So just hearing that you leverage the community to grow as an infection preventionist when you were having tears, as you said, challenges at the beginning, and then you joined our program, the Popular EP. What made you decide to invest in yourself and join this program?
Well, as I said, it was very difficult for me to step into an IP role, into a leadership capacity in a new environment. And I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to do my job, to do the thing I was hired to do. And I realized that I needed to expand my toolbox, not only my practical knowledge about infection prevention, but also my communication and interpersonal skills. And in looking for opportunities to invest in myself. Lorenza had actually mentioned that you were starting this program, Powerful IP, and that it would be a good opportunity for me to gain more experience and serve as a safe space for me to practice my skills and make sure that I'm able to do my job.
Well, I'm so glad you joined. I remember, as you said, I remember our first session, you said, I'm very scared of being a new
Yeah.
IP, and you did mention I I'm scared of what did you say? I'm scared of being the enemy.
Oh,
And
probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that first session we really worked on just yourself, just thinking about yourself and how to change your mindset. And I just remember you and the other participants in the program, and I'm so proud of all of you because I remember 2 or 3 sessions later, you guys were different people. I even told myself they were scared the first time, and some of you even mentioned, I want to quit. But then on session 3, you exchanging ideas, you open minded about even changing the way you see infection prevention. And then you stayed for such a long time. And so I just have to say, I'm very proud of all of you. And I know you guys are going to be leaders in this field, and I can't wait to see more of the impact you'll make.
Thank you, Carol. I think I speak for all of us when I say it was a really supportive environment to be in as new IPs.
That's phenomenal. And like I told Carol, predating this initiative is that this is a community that's definitely needed within the IP space. And so, Jaclyn, one of the things that I admire about you is your self-reflection, which is important as an IP, understanding your strengths but also your weaknesses and how best can you improve that, and what tools or mentors can you lean lean on to bolster, your skills. And that's one thing that is a positive attribute about you as an individual, and in my experience working with you as an IP. So specifically within your career as an infection preventionist, share with us what actually clicked. You and Carol had this conversation about, there were some fears about you will not always be liked. However, the field of IP is phenomenal. There are some times in which you have to share some difficult news and learning how to do that. And sometimes it's challenging depending on your personality type. So share with us, what was it that clicked, and what was that moment that allowed for you to operate within your role as an IP with ease and just fully transition into that leadership component?
So such a good question, Lorenza. I think there were many little moments that led to maybe an overall clicking. I remember going and rounding with my manager at the time on construction sites and seeing uh, her observe the environment and notice things that I never would have seen before. I remember watching you lead a meeting about the flow in our EPD department and realizing how much of an impact you can have in this role. And for myself, I think it clicked when I got over my fear of HAI drill down meetings and presenting at HAI drill down meetings. I had a very difficult case on one of my units where they had two CLABSI events attributed to the same patient in a small time frame. And having to relay that to the team was difficult, and then having to present on the complexity of that case was difficult. But I remember preparing for that meeting, presenting at that meeting, and feeling really confident in answering questions about the CLABSI designation, questions about the case, and really comfortable in my relationship with the unit leadership as well in responding to that situation. And I think that for me was when it clicked and when I was able to go, you know what, I can do this job. I am capable of uh, doing this work.
Yeah, so for me, that reminds me one of this our live sessions. I remember the first time I said, if you see something is happening in your facility, even if you don't know anything, take initiative and ask if you can help with the project. You don't have to lead it, but at least help with it. And I remember the expression on your faces were what I saw was, oh my goodness, Carol, what are you asking us to do? And I think the first session, even on the worksheet, I said, you need to go meet everyone. I even included the CEO there, and I know it was very challenging. But then you guys got really comfortable. And as you said, you got into these meetings and you were comfortable leading and answering questions and remembering that sometimes you don't have the answer right away, but you're able to find the resources. So nothing is really an emergency when you're in a meeting. So there's always time to go back and reflect and see what did I miss? And here's the answer to the question you had.
I'm sure you laughed at a lot of our facial expressions and
Well, well, I mean, some of them were funny, but others, it was really, I can relate because this was me. So, how did becoming part of this community, working with us, especially someone like me and the other new IPs in this program who were not part of your organization, how did it help you start seeing, even with the new skill and the confidence and just comfort you started having with being an IP? When did you start realizing that infection prevention is not just technical, it's really part of the broader organizational vision?
I think that in my introduction to infection prevention at my facility and then also through Powerful IP, we I was kind of shocked by how interdisciplinary and broad infection prevention was. There were a lot of components to this field that I, prior to entering it, had no idea made much of an impact. I think I actually wrote down there was one worksheet that we did in Powerful IP where we were required to think of a hypothetical initiative that we would like to take on and list out all the different stakeholders that might be involved in that initiative and who we would need to talk to and what we would need to get from them in order to make this initiative happen. And being, again, shocked by how many different players there were that fake, initiative. Ultimately, I was able to experience being a part of a couple different projects at my organization, and every time there was people were involved from all different sides, administrative, quality, the clinical team in those decision making and implementation of those projects. And that was a really cool experience. I think that I really learned to value being a part of an interdisciplinary team through working in infection prevention.
I really like how you apply all the theoretical concepts and everything that you learn, you take
Oh,
away and
Yeah.
you just go and you have lemons and you make lemonade. So I just love that.
you gotta learn.
Yes.
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 Gotta learn.
And this is a good transition into my next question, Jaclyn. So, of course, as you noted, it's integral to your success as an IP to understand the intricacies of navigating multidisciplinary groups and effectively, partnering with them in order to see that your IP initiative reach the ultimate goal. So, share with us one example based on your learnings through powerful IP. Share with us at least one example of how you utilize the information that you learned and you cross-translated that into, albeit you leading a project or translating some infection prevention practice and the group subsequently implementing that within their workflow. So share with us what you've learned has successfully impacted an initiative or project that you've completed.
Thanks, Lorenza. I feel very grateful for the time I spent in infection prevention, but I won't pretend to say I was there like a very long time and was able to do a lot on my own. I feel like I learned a lot from the people that I worked with, including Lorenza, as well as you, Carol, and my other teammates at my organization, my cohort members. I think that one small example I have is that one of the things we talked about in our Powerful IP meetings was interpersonal communication and being a leader and how to work with other people. And I noticed that in some of our HAI drill down meetings, it was demoralizing to the clinical team to be faced with a CAUTI or CLABSI, especially when they were really actively making changes and doing a lot of work to prevent HAIs on their unit. One thing I started to do in those meetings was to pointedly address wins that our team had so that they can feel seen and that effort wouldn't go without acknowledgement, because ultimately those changes do make a difference and deserve to be appreciated as well. And so I think that's one small example of a thing that I was able to do while working as an IP, and I got positive feedback from the unit leadership about those. It made our HAI drill downs a lot more collaborative and a little bit more engaging, but I think that's my one example.
Yeah, what I would say is that that really isn't it's not small,
Oh,
as many of us IPs, I was thrusted into the profession. So not really having that structure that you did with having multiple IPs that you can learn from throughout the course of your career, and especially as a new IP. So being self-taught, sometimes you make those mistakes and you have that time of trial and error in trying to build those relationships, but that is integral to really understand the intricacies of communicating out that difficult information, like I noted, especially like in HAI. And we know that teams are working to protect patients and provide the quality care that they deserve. However, that information must be presented. But how can we present that in a most effective way so that at the end of it, we can all learn from this particular situation and we can also strategize on what initiatives do we need to implement to prevent future infections as well, while also celebrating their wins. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Jaclyn.
no problem.
Yes.
Thanks, Lorenza.
Yes, and I totally agree because, as they always say, the only growth happens when we go through discomfort. So you're going through that very uncomfortable situation with you are able to learn some of these skills, well, apply some of the skills you had learned and become more comfortable with discussing with different types of stakeholders. So I do agree with Lorenza. It's not small especially as a new IP, to speak to different an interdisciplinary team that some of them you may have never interacted with, especially coming from public health. If you've never worked in a hospital, that must have been very nerve-wracking. So it's not a small a small victory right there. So this is a very just to piggyback on what Lorenza said. I think this is a great time for me to ask my next question. So based on that experience, what do you think is what would you say to organizations that hesitate in investing in the leadership development of new infection preventionists? How would you say it benefits the organization as a whole?
In my short experience in IP, I learned infection prevention is difficult. It's a difficult field, but it's really, really difficult to be an effective infection preventionist if you're not comfortable in working as a leader. And your infection prevention programming as a healthcare system is only going to be as good as the people that are leading it. And so I think it's important for organizations to realize that they have to invest in their staff in order to have effective programming. And I know that they want that effective programming because it improves patient safety and it improves their funding at the end of the day as well.
Yes, investing in your staff is very important. Not only, as you mentioned, funding, it not only helps you with your funding, helps provide better quality care to patients, but also helps the organization look better to the community as well.
This is true. That's a very good point. Yes.
Jaclyn, how do you feel as though your organization, during your experience as an IP, benefited from your skills and the mindset that you've subsequently obtained through your matriculation through the powerful IP program?
Well, I'll tell you, I was not comfortable doing just-in-time coaching before participating in the Powerful IP program. Uh, and I do think that's a really doing just-in-time coaching or raising issues that I saw, see something, say something. It was difficult for me to do that. And it remained difficult, but having the ability to communicate and knowing how to communicate and why it's important to communicate, I think really made me an effective infection preventionist and able to execute the goals of our organization's programming, which was, reduce hospital-acquired infections, keep patients safe from infectious materials.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great information. And I think that you noted this previously that because it's the same experience that I had navigating into the field of IP, you only see it from a certain frame of reference,
Mm.
until you've actually obtained a role within IP and now you understand the brevity of the work and the scope of work that you're required to complete. So, of course, me entering into the field of IP, never did I realize how closely connected you are within the healthcare organization and the hierarchical chain and communicating in some organizations to the C-suite. So of course there are certain skills that you have to, in order to be successful at this job, learn how to grow and navigate, within the field successfully, and you leveraging programs such as the Powerful IP to grow and bolster those skills in addition to your colleagues and reaching out to individuals outside of your organization if you're a solo IP as well.
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah, and you come to realize really fast that to be an effective IP, you need very strong communication skills and also being confident and comfortable communicating even bad news. So I think that was a very interesting boot camp for you, I would say. As with every new infection preventionist that has to go through these challenges at the beginning of their career.
Yes. Just one more thought about
Yeah.
this question, too. I think that I gained a lot of practical knowledge from this program in terms of being able to talk with other IPs and talk with you, Carol, and learn from the presenters that you had come in. Um, like getting to learn everything that you're expected to know or that you'll be questioned about as an IP. I think that was another huge benefit I took away coming into infection prevention with, like you said, Lorenza, just one perspective, public health perspective.
Absolutely. So you've told me that you started medical school, and I would say congratulations again. That's not
Thank
You
you.
never mentioned that through the program, so just hearing that, I was overjoyed for you. Just seeing you just going for it, going for what you want in your career. So, can you tell us how what you've learned as an infection preventionist and also in the powerful IP? How are you translating it to your medical training so far?
Yeah, I think it would take me a long time to list every lesson I learned from working in infection prevention, but a really important one is that I am responsible for my own learning. I think that as a new infection preventionist, there was so much that I had to learn. I had to learn about ICRA, I had to learn about CMS, DNV, Joint Commission, um, coaching, our central line, and our urinary catheter bundles. And that amount of learning felt like a lot. And I wasn't in school anymore. No one was going to formally teach me that material. So it was important as an early career professional, and I think also as an infection preventionist, to be able to figure out how to make sure that I was learning what I needed to in order to do my job effectively. And that is something that has really benefited me in medical school, where even though it is a school setting, there's a lot that you are required to know, and you have to go beyond what you're being taught in order to make sure that you understand it the way that it will make sense to you.
That's a beautiful way to frame that. Of course, within your experience now as a medical student, but also as an infection preventionist, that prevails within our profession as well. So, looking forward to the future, I join Carol in noting how proud I am of you, of still striving towards your goals. And now you're a medical student. But in my mind, I view this as a beautiful thing because now we will have a physician that is out there with a background in IP, which is
Oh.
definitely
Exactly.
needed, right?
I agree.
So, how do you anticipate utilizing the skills and knowledge that you've obtained along the way, in addition to through this program and in your practical work as an IP, but also that systems thinking that you learned within the powerful IP program as well? How do you intend to carry that with you as you subsequently become a physician?
That's such a good question. I think that there are a lot of takeaways from working in infection prevention that I will be reflecting on as I enter my clinical years of medical school and then eventually residency and hopefully a career in medicine. I think that, and I mentioned this earlier, but a really important part of something I learned in infection prevention was the value of an interdisciplinary team and relying on people who have different expertise than your own in order to identify initiatives and make change that is sustainable and accounts for all the different players in healthcare, of which there are so many. I think that that was something that uh, was immediately evident to me starting medical school, that it's going to be so valuable to understand how everybody in the healthcare system works together to make sure that patients get the best care that they can.
And I'm curious, some minds may want to know, at least my curious mind wants to know, do you intend to go into infectious disease, or what is your pathway or your passion in medicine?
Yeah. I I'm so early in medical school. 2 months in. I know I tell everybody I know one thing so far. um But think that it's really interesting to me both because of my background in public health and infection prevention. Infectious disease is really interesting to me because of my background in public health and infection prevention. But I'm not closing the door on other options, except for surgery. I will not be a surgeon, but and I hope my opinion doesn't change because if this is shared, then no one's going to want to interview me for that. But I'm pretty confident I will not be doing that. Not
Yeah.
because there's anything wrong with it. It's just I my decision to go to medical school was because I think that I wanted to spend like the majority of my time working directly serving people.
Okay.
And I love that with infection prevention, you are impacting like a broad population. But for me, that's how I wanted to spend my day, was just working with people individually, and then having some ability to do research or work on a population health level as well. But yeah, that kind of made my decision for me, was that I really like directly working with people.
I love that. So, Jaclyn, you've accomplished so much so far and still growing as a professional, especially going into the medical field. But I see there's so much growth, and you already feel and act like a leader, which is very commendable. And we keep repeating it. We're so proud of you. So,
Oh.
my next question for you would be, what would you say to new or early career infection preventionists who feel unsure about their leadership abilities or potential?
I'll first say thank you to both of you for being really good examples of what a leader should be.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Of course. But I think that to early career professionals in infection prevention, I think it's important to acknowledge the reality of the field in which you will be asked to act in a leadership capacity. But it's also important to realize that leadership doesn't have to look one way, and you get to define the leader that you want to be in infection prevention. I think that I found it really valuable to spend time reflecting on what kind of leader I wanted to be, and it really helped him make me an effective infection preventionist. And I think that Powerful IP was a really good place to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to hear that. So I know you're gonna transform a lot of lives. So I can't
Oh.
wait. As I'm gonna be very impatient to see you work as a physician.
It's a long way away. I also
I
have to
know.
be very patient.
Yes, no, I will be impatient, but you get to be patient.
Uh,
So, Jaclyn, you noted previously that, of course, it's important that leaders invest in their team, their IP team, through professional development opportunities such as the Powerful IP. And of course, there was an investment made into you as far as you being one of the cohort members of Powerful IP. So, what would you say to leaders that are considering educational platforms such as Powerful IP for their team, and the benefits that it will provide their staff as they're striving to meet those organizational goals as it relates to their IP program?
I would say do it. As I stated previously, like, your infection prevention programming is only going to be as good as the people responsible for leading it. And you want your team to be populated with people who are not only technically knowledgeable, but who are also able and willing to initiate change. And I think giving them the toolbox to be able to do that is crucial.
Wow. I mean, I think I don't even know what we should add to that. You are very inspirational, and I think other new IPs will really learn a lot from your experience. So we can't wait, Lorenza and I, to see how many more things you will do to impact organizations,
Mhm.
even in your one-on-one interactions with patients and other teams. And as Lorenza was saying earlier, just seeing a new physician entering the field with the IPC mindset and also leadership skills as an IP will be very beneficial to whatever organization you end up in. So, yeah, we're here to cheer you, and you know we're here if you ever need us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I feel very supported, and I'm excited to see the generation of leaders that you guys raise up.
So, thank you so much, Jaclyn. So this is unfortunately time for us to say goodbye. It was so great to hear your story. And as I said, I will be impatient to see what next you'll do, but you get to be patient. But before we part ways, it's also International Infection Prevention Week, which is, the most favorite week for all IPs everywhere, from leadership to infection control nurse working with the bedside. So all of us IPs in the world, we're really excited when this week comes up every year. So the theme for this year, as you know, is stand up for infection prevention. So what does it mean to you, Jaclyn, to stand up for infection prevention?
It's been such a pleasure being here. To answer your question, Carol, to me, standing up for infection prevention means advocating for investment in public health initiatives that keep people safe from infection. That's what it means to me.
I love it. Yes, and that's very much needed, especially nowadays with all the emerging infections, international travel. We really need a lot of funding. Thanks so much for sharing that. Lorenza, do you have anything else to say before we say goodbye?
I have no doubt in my mind the success that you will see in your future. I'm just so happy to
Aw.
be here. This is definitely a reflection of how small the field of IP is. And I'm just so happy for you that, you successfully matriculated through the powerful IP program and that, of course, as we knew, it would be beneficial to you in your career as an IP, but subsequently cross-translating that, right? Because the program can cross-translate to other professions. Now you have that foundational knowledge and skills to take with you through your medical school programming. And subsequently, we already know the future looks bright as you become a physician. So it's been a pleasure talking with you today, Jaclyn.
Thank you, Lorenza. Thank you, Carol. I really appreciated all of this.